Hello friends, welcome to another chapter of Slide Scope. We are learning various libraries for data analysis using Python, and in this part we will learn how to load JSON API data in a data frame, and then how we can visualize that data, how we can analyze that data. So we'll be doing historical stock prices data analysis, and in this example we will load 5 minutes historical stock prices with volume data, and we'll be using an API of financialmodelingrep.com. So this is the website financialmodelingrep.com. So this particular website provides an API. You can click on this API documentation tab and it will take you to this documentation. So in the documentation you can see it is whatever information it provides, and you can get your free API key also. So it provides information about company profile, quote, search, financial statements, financial ratios and things like that. In this particular example, we'll be using this historical price 1 by 5, this 30-minute 1 hour display, and we'll be using this 5 minutes historical stock prices. So 5 minutes historical stock prices with volume. So we'll be using this particular URL here, and for every URL they have given us a sample URL using which you can get the JSON data. So you can click on this URL, and if you are using something like Mozilla browser, so you will see the JSON response now. So you can see currently the API key is demo. You can get your own API key also if you want to make many calls, and you can copy this particular URL because on this URL we have our JSON response. So what is API, what API can do, what data we get from an API, everything can be understood from the chapters that we have discussed previously. So in previous chapters we have discussed about what is API, what is JSON, what is JSON API. So this is a simple URL, and when you are requesting this URL, when you are sending a request to this URL with these parameters, for example, we are entering the symbol of company AAPL, and this is symbol of Apple, and you can enter symbol of any particular company here, and then it will give you the response in form of JSON. You can see that the response that we are getting here, you can go to raw data. This response is an array here, and because this response is in such format where we have this time series, so we can convert this to a data frame by using read underscore JSON method of pandas library. So now we will go to this Jupyter notebook. So in this Jupyter notebook you can see I have first imported pandas as PD. This is just for data processing. Then I have created a variable called df, which will be my data frame, and then I am using the URL that I have got from there, and I am using a method called read underscore JSON. So read underscore JSON can be used when the response is in form of JSON. Suppose while accessing any particular URL, for example, when we access this URL or when we access a URL, so suppose when we access Google, so in that case we get a HTML response, right? In this case we are getting an HTML response. If you will go and you will type google.com, so the response that you will get is a HTML response. Now the thing is, in this case we are not getting the HTML response, but we are getting the JSON response. The output of this particular URL is a JSON, and that's why we can access that particular data. JSON is also a way of transferring and storing structured data. In this data you can see there are dictionaries, so there are keys and values. So for every index, these are the indexes, you can see index 0, index 1, index 2, and we have n number of indexes here, approximately 700 indexes here. So for these 700 different indexes we have different pair of values here, and using these pair of values we can create our data frame. These values will become the header of our data frame. You can see in all the indexes you will find the same number of keys and same number of values, and the name of those keys will be same. So here also we have date, open, low, high, close volume. Here also we have date, open, low, high, close volume. So this makes this particular API really special, and because we can create a data frame directly from it, and the data frame will have valid values. So now we can go to this Jupyter notebook, which is running with the help of Anaconda Navigator, and with the help of read underscore JSON function, we have created a data frame. Now, first, let's analyze this df. So we will use df.head. So now you can see that we have this data here in df.head is used to see top 5 rows of the data frame. So we have close, we have date, we have high, we have low, open, and volume. So for a particular date and a particular time, you can see the last time is 16. At this time market closes. So for a particular date and for a particular time, we have the value of the stock price, the high, the low, at which price it opened, and at which price is closed. So now we can move ahead, and you can see one thing here, that we have just used read underscore JSON here. We have not used any other parameter in this read underscore JSON. So, but this date has been considered as date. So the data type of this date has been considered as date time. So whenever you will use read JSON, and in your read JSON, if the column name ends with at, time, timestamp, modified, or date. So if your column name is date or modified or timestamp or underscore time, or it ends with at or it ends with time, so such type of values will be converted to dates. So this convert dates is by default bool. So how can we use that parameter here? So just after date this you can add convert underscore dates is equal to false. If you don't want to convert the dates to date time values by default, you can use this, but we want to convert it to date. That's why we are using this time series analysis. So now this will create our data frame, and then we can load the head, or we can load the complete data frame also. Let's load the complete data frame for now, so that we can see how many values are there and various things like that. So now you can see in this data frame we have these values here, and it goes up to 700 records. So for various dates and for 5-minute time period we have this data. So we have data of 22nd May 16 hours, 22nd May 15 hours and 55 minutes, and for every 5 minutes we have this data. So when we have this type of data, we can plot graphs in it, and we already know that this particular method read underscore JSON will also convert the dates to date time values. But how can we check that the values are converted to proper date time values? For that we have a method called info, and using this info method we can check the data type. We already know that we have used this method earlier also. So now you can see the information of our columns. So with the help of this info method of pandas data frame, you can see that there are non-null columns in close, date, high, low, open, and volume. For close we have float 64, for volume we have integer 64, and for date you can see we have date time 64 data. So the data type of these columns are now known to us. Now the next thing is we have already discussed about this in previous examples also. Whenever we have this date time data, so and using this date time data, we can set the index to this date. Currently the index is set as this default 012 thing here, but we can set the index as date, and that will make it date time index. So we can use it using this set underscore index method. We have also used this method in previous examples. So by using the set underscore index, we are setting it to date. Why we are doing it? So with the help of date index, choose any particular date or range of dates. So when we have set the index as date, so in that case, suppose we want to see data for any particular date only. Suppose we want to see how data was varying for a particular date, then we can choose that particular date in the index, and we will get the information of that date only, because here you can see we have data starting from 22nd May 2020, and here you can see it is from 4th May 2020 to 22nd May 2020, and between 4th May and 22nd May we have 700 values. Suppose we want data of any particular date between these dates, so we can get that data, or we want data of some particular range of date, so that we can get that data also. Let's see the examples. So now since we have set index as date, so what we have done here is we have created a new data frame, and in the new data frame we have set the index as date, and the name of our new data frame is DFN, and now we can print the DFN to see the changes also. So now you can see in our DFN we have the changes. The date is now its index. So this is importance of time series related data. And in this API, you will see they have a special place for stock time series. So you can use other APIs also. You can use other examples also. I am just giving you a hint about one such example. And in this DFN, we can put info also. Now you will see that this particular column will be called as date time index. So now you can see it's date time index. Now, as already discussed, with the help of date index, choose any particular date or range of date. So choose one or any number of columns and then visualize the line plot. So what we are going to do here, we can choose any number of columns from the data frame here. So we have close here, high here, low, open, volume. So what I am going to do here, I will choose open and close here. I will choose these two series. This close is one series, open is another series. You can see it's 318.86, 318.29. So it is going up and down. So I have now selected two columns. So what I am doing here is, you will understand this really easily. The first thing that I am doing here is I am selecting one index here, and the date is used as index here, and when my data frame is selected, so in this data frame what I am doing here is I am selecting two columns, open and close, and then I am simply using plot here. So what this will do, this will plot the data for us. First, only this much code will give us the data frame for this particular date for open and close values. You can see. So for date 7/5/2020, we have values of open and close from 16 hours, 15 hours, 55 minutes, 15 hours, 50 minutes, and so on. And now what we can do, we can simply use dot plot. When we are not using any kind, so this will give us a line plot. So now you will see the line plot here, and you can see the data. If you want to increase the size of this image, so you already know this attribute, you can use fix size is equal to let's say 10 comma 4. So now we have a bigger image so that we can visualize the data more easily. So for the given date, you can see it's starting from 10 a.m. here, and then we have these values, and this is how the data is varying, and it's ending at 16 hours. So in blue line we have open, and in orange line we have data of close. So you can see here the difference that close has a higher value here. So this is how you can analyze the prices of on any particular day. In the next case, what I am going to do here is I will select a range of dates here. So first we will see same type of graphs. Then because there is a time difference, right? After 16 hours, data for the next day will be taken. So you will see that in graph, everything will be visible from graph. And here I am simply selecting a range of dates. When you have to select a range of date, because in this data the dates 22nd May comes in top header, right? So that's why we have to write this date here, and a date which was earlier to 22nd May will be written just after that, and we have used a colon here. So if you have to select data for a range of dates, so you can write one date, then semicolon, and then second date. So now you can filter data on the basis of range. We have also discussed this in the part of time series, and now you are seeing some practical example of that also on a real data set. And now we have open and close value. We can put more values here also. Suppose first I will draw this. So now you can see the data here, and this horizontal line that we are seeing is because this is 16 hours for 21st May, and then it is opening at 10 a.m. for next date. So now we will take this particular graph here, and in this graph we will put more variables. So we have open, close, we can take more variables here. So open, close, high and low. Now pandas or matplotlib will automatically decide the colors and put the legend here. Now you can see the data. So we are seeing this graph here. Its figure size is 10,4. You can see blue represents open, orange represents close, green represents high, which we can clearly see that it is the highest value here, and red represents low, which is the lowest value in every case. So now I think you understand some basics how you can read JSON data. The analysis part after this, the exploratory data analysis part after this is similar to what we are doing for all data sets. Now we can also see distribution of a variable, or we can say any particular series here in pandas data frame. So for example, we want to see how price is distributed in any particular series here. For example, let us select high here. So high, how price is distributed for this high here. So what we can do, we can write df, and in dfn we have to select high. This will select this series, you can see, and then in series what you can do, you can write plot, and you can write kind is equal to hist. Kind is equal to hist means histogram, and histogram is used to see distribution of a data, frequency of occurrence of data. So what is frequency of occurrence of 318? What is frequency of occurrence of the low value? So let's see this. So now we have this data. So on x-axis we have values in dollars, and on y-axis we have frequency, that out of 700 values approximately I will say 180 values are of this bar 320. Then we have this bar 315 also. So some values are there. There are some values that are between 290 and 295. So that is approximately one value. So this is how you can see how data is distributed in a particular column or in a particular series, or we call it a variable, a single variable, distribution of a variable in data frame, because we have selected only one data frame, one data value here. So now the next thing is we'll see distribution of two or more variable on the same graph, variables on the same graph. So in this case, we simply have to choose two columns, that is high and low. We can choose any number of columns because the range is almost similar here. So we have lower and upper ranges are very much similar for these two values. So we can choose them, and now we can plot this. So now you can see it will put a legend also that this blue color represents high and this represents low, and we have this type of data. So this is how we can see distribution of variables. And whenever your data is of time series, that means you have date time kind of data. So in that case, you have to see the relationship with how that particular value is varying with respect to time. So you always use line plot, or you should use line plot. That's why for line plot, we don't have to write kind is equal to anything. For other type of plots, we have to write kind is equal to hist, kind is equal to bar, kind is equal to pi. But for this type of graphs, you don't have to write anything. And now you can plot such kind of data. So this is a simple exploratory data analysis on stock price data. The main purpose of this thing was to introduce you about API, this financial modeling rep API. There are various APIs. Many websites provide, many services are there on internet if you will search for them. So there are many websites that provide stock related APIs, stock related data through their APIs. This is one such example, and I think this was the easiest example because in this case we are getting the time series data. We are getting data in form of a time series. You can see we have date time here already written. So most of the work has already been done by the provider of this API, and we can simply load this data in our data frame using read underscore JSON. Then we can perform some exploratory analysis. Now whatever you have learned so far, you will, and in upcoming chapters also you will learn different type of graphs, different type of plots. So you can apply everything on this data also. In the end, this is some data, and as per the requirement, the main thing is what's your goal, what you want to show people. So as per that you can find the data. For example, here we wanted to see how data was varying for a particular day, how data of open, close, high and low was varying for a particular day. So we have values here and we have date here. So we plotted this. Then we wanted to see how data is distributed in a particular series. So we plotted one particular variable here. We can also see two variables in the same plot. Again, in this case, we have done it using the plot method. In upcoming chapters, you will also learn about Seaborn library. So then you can apply, after learning Seaborn library, you can come back and apply some graphs of Seaborn library on this data also. So it's up to you how you want to do it. This is just an introduction so that you can learn properly, so that you can learn use of JSON APIs, so that you can learn how to analyze data. Thanks for watching.